Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests are actress Carol Channing and her husband, Harry Kullijian. And we have writer-director Jeff Sumeral. So here's the story. Harry Kullijian was born in Modesto. Carol Channing was born in Seattle. They were both raised in San Francisco and attended the same junior high school, Aptos. Then they went on to different schools. Harry became a very important and prominent businessman in land use. Carol went on to film and stage. She won 3 Tonys, including a Lifetime Achievement Award, and you know her as Miss Lorelei Lee in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Ms. Dolly Levi in Hello, Dolly. About 70 years go by.
I did some 10 Broadway shows, though.
You
Joan
did?
Quinn. Yes.
In between that 70 years.
Yes, and 65 years in the American theater and very little time off. So I just want credit, that's all.
Oh, you need a lot of credit, because what were you, we wanted to know what you were doing in those 70 years before you came back to Harry.
Yes.
Yes. How many shows?
Yeah, well, 10 shows.
Ooh,
I started out understudying Eve Arden and all that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm interested in what you were saying.
Well, was it good?
Oh, yes. It's about, it's about us.
So then you came back to each other? How is that story, Harry? In 2003.
Well, what happened is I had a little orchestra, and I was 13 years old at the time, and this was during the Depression, 1933. And Carol approached me. We were in the school cafeteria and said, "Would you dance with me?" I said, "I don't know how to dance. Musicians don't know how to dance." In any case, I said, "I don't know how to dance." But she tried to teach me. So what?
He organized the first school band in Aptos Junior High.
So that's what must have brought you together, his clarinet.
And saxophone.
Oh, and saxophone
Oh,
too.
yes. And Aunt Haigui used to, well, anyway, he had music lessons from Mr. Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's all right.
So, Harry, did she ever sing with your band then?
Oh, yes.
I let her only once in a while.
Oh, is that right? In junior high school, she was singing with you?
Yes.
But oh, he was smart, Joan Quinn. He was brilliant. I mean, and so beautiful. Armenians go through an age when he's still beautiful.
I know.
It's the cheekbones, I think. I don't know what it is.
Oh, look at her cheekbones. These are Armenian
exactly.
too.
You look like my sister-in-law, Lucille Pilibosian.
Oh, well, I'm so happy to be a part of your family.
Oh yes, and they breed like rabbits. Well, I'm an only child, and the Channings. I'm the last of the Channings.
Oh,
and
you are. So
yes.
aren't you lucky to have an Armenian family?
And there are children, glorious children, all over at Christmas time, at holiday times. It's this is the happiest time of my life.
I'm so happy to hear that, because
Yes.
music brought you together. And with
Yes.
music, it's very important to both of you.
You're so right.
And you were talking about Harry having music lessons.
Yes.
In school.
From Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
And because we were on our way to the Divine Gardens, you know, in
Turlock.
Turlock. Well, we're off the subject, really.
Yeah.
But that's
Yes,
okay. No, we're on the subject, because he knew what a music teacher was.
Yes.
You knew what a music teacher was. And now when you're with all of his little
That's
children
right.
and the big family, you say they don't know what music teachers are.
Oh. They don't know. We used to have music teachers in public schools, now only in private schools. No art teachers in any form of art. Joan.
So that's what you two became interested in after you were married in 2003?
Yes, you see,
It happened because she received a doctorate degree from Stanislaus State.
Oh, I see.
In Modesto.
And I make house calls.
And when our president was leaving of the university, I said, I want to leave you a legacy because I believe something's gonna happen because of this doctorate degree in the arts. She was the first person in California State University, which is the largest university in the United States, in the world really, that we're going to do these things, and we're going to do it because you gave her this opportunity. And now she's devoted the last 4 years of her life doing exactly that.
So she got a doctorate.
Yes.
And you both thought it was so wonderful you wanted to give back to the community, and you started the foundation. What's the name of the foundation?
The doctor, I'm a doctor.
Oh, that's why you're a doctor.
That's why.
I see.
The head, Charles Reed, made me a doctor because I work for nothing, I think. That's what it is. No.
I see. I got it. So she was saying, I can't call him Chuck. You were saying,
Yeah,
I can't call him
Yes,
Chuck.
that's
He's,
right.
Charlie.
That's right. He's the head
He
of
says,
the
call
whole...
me Charlie. I can't call him Chuck.
Yeah. Okay, now we know. Now, so Dr. Carol Channing or Dr. Channing?
That's right. And so it's called the Dr. Carol Channing Harry Kullijian Foundation.
And what do you do in that foundation?
We work like crazy. Tonight, tomorrow night we'll be, well, anyway, we just keep at it.
Well, Carol's done 14 scholarships in 14 different universities in California. She lectures high schools, grammar schools on the arts. We speak to audiences about what you can do. We died.
See, once you kill the arts, it's like the fall, just before the fall of the Holy Roman Empire.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because
Yes.
you think the arts are so important in the school. What do they bring? What do the arts bring
The
to
arts
people?
expand children in science, history, English, math, human biology, strange things you'd never expect, but they do. And every good teacher knows that.
It's non-debatable that the two greatest individuals of the last century was Albert Einstein and Churchill. And what did they both do? Einstein said, Einstein said, if arts are what motivated him to see this beautiful harmony of the entire universe, and he was
He said,
one of
"No,
the
I'm
great.
no
He
smart."
was almost a professional violinist.
Oh, and also Churchill painted.
And he did that in South
Winston.
Africa. He had a canvas bathtub. He had his
Right.
bathtub and brandy every night, and he painted with his easel. He took it with him to South Africa while the war was on with Rommel.
Yeah.
Fabulous
So
testimony.
so you're telling us exactly how the arts have benefited people, just to see the two of you saying how the arts have benefited.
Well, it
How-
benefited both of us.
That's what I mean.
We discovered poetry together. Sweet, 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 O Pan, piercing sweet by the river. Blinding sweet, O great God, Pan. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. We discovered Milton Keats and Shelley. We discovered...
How does she remember everything?
I remember everything. We got it together. We couldn't wait to get to school. We'd walk to school, and I was 12. He was 13 when we met, and we went steady together. 12.
My father came from Turkey, and he
Another
he was
beautiful
he
man.
He never graduated from grammar school, and very little education. Her parents were one of the most prominent families in San Francisco. So I'd go there and I'd listen to all this Shakespeare and Chaucer and Bacon and poetry and Poe and whatever. And then I'd go to symphonies. Oh, I loved symphonies.
He would go to the rehearsals because he could get in free.
That's fantastic. How do you bring these, with your foundation, how do you give the scholarships out? How do you work with the schools?
We're not working to make artists.
No.
We want to bring arts into people who want. The greatest doctors, I found out through Harry, come home and play instruments, play piano. Presidents come home and play instruments.
Right. But you give scholarships to schools, right?
Well, we go to a university.
Tell us
we
what
go
you
to a
do.
university. Carol does a full performance, absolutely free.
Oh, she does?
She takes money out of her pocket and gives it to the school and say, you give it to either a child who warrants further education in the
so
arts.
you let them be the judge?
And let them be the judge, and then we also ask them to give scholarships for teachers, because all the teachers in the arts are being fired
They're
all over the state of
fired.
California.
So when you work
They
with
gotta fire another
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of teacher.
So you
They're
work
not-
with the school,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then the scholarship goes to that school, and they choose either a teacher
They choose
or
it. They do all
I
that.
see. Oh,
We don't.
I see. But you do all the benefits, and you do all the pitching. you try to get the money, right?
Yeah.
Do you try to get money from other
We just got
places?
an art donation worth about $200,000 that's going into a museum. And when the museum is through with it in about 2 or 3 years, because of the IRS regulations, then they're going to sell it and give it to scholarships for kids and school teachers. But in the meantime, kids are going to see this art exhibit. It's mostly sculpture and paintings, 49 pieces. We don't know
Wow.
what the value is yet. We haven't added appraised, but these are the kind of things that we're trying to do, is bring to kids instruments now. Carol is trying to provide instruments now for kids from depressed financial areas. And secondly, we want to give scholarships and for teachers and youngsters and buy musical instruments. And the main thing, here's number one, folks.
Yeah,
We
let's hear
need
it.
to spread the word to all the communities how essential the arts are to education. And if we fail that, as I wrote in a letter to Mrs. Obama, we have lost the United States. We have almost a 40% dropout rate, which translated nationally means that within a 12-year period from kindergarten to high school, there have been over 12 to 14 million kids who can't read and write.
So we need the arts help us to read
Oh,
and write.
all the
Well,
research.
the teachers tell me, the art teachers, they say, they come into kindergarten eager. Oh, I'm going to learn. Oh, they're excited. They're going to make friends. They're going to be a part of the community, all that. And they go slowly dead.
Yep.
Slowly. They watch their little brains disintegrate, they told me. And the teachers tell me, and by the time they're in first grade, they're just bored stiff.
We're going to have a show.
And they take
We're going to have a
they
show.
take the creative force out
They
of the
kill-
children.
yeah.
It's natural for children to have a creative force in them.
yeah.
They remove it immediately and they watch it.
Harlan Bull, our publicist, has arranged to bring some kids who were gang-related in poor neighborhoods of Los Angeles, who, if they get a B average in school, are allowed to join the chorus and music, and we're going to bring them on stage at UCLA on October 11th. We're going to put them on stage to say, look, they need a B average to be able to
And
do
they
this.
can sing.
And they're up, yeah, and they're going to be there, and it warms the cockle of my heart that we can buy instruments, and now there's one group in Los Angeles, I'm trying to raise money for it. It's a 250 handicapped kids, and they don't have enough money, and we're going to try and raise the money for them.
You know, you two don't only go out. You have all of your friends, Florence Henderson and Joanne
Yes.
Worley and Donna Mills, and all those friends
Yes.
have made PSAs for you.
Yes.
And they're helping you with this.
And Carol talked to Clint Eastwood yesterday.
Yesterday,
We're going to go national
he
next
called
year.
me
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
I mean, I left word that in his first movie and in my first movie, we had a clinch. And I said, Clint, I never get these parts where I have a clinch. He said, neither do I. This is my first movie. I said, well, it's mine. So we spent lunch hour. Do my arms go under yours or over yours?
For the clinch.
Yeah, for the clinch. And how do you get both of us facing out and still have us concentrate? Well, anyway, so finally Clint called me back, and he wants to be a part of this too.
So you've got your friends involved.
Oh, yes.
And
He does.
before we leave, is this really true, Harry? Do gentlemen really prefer blondes?
Well,
No.
she was not a blonde when I knew her.
Oh,
That's it. But
Not even vaguely. But
So
let
it
me
must
say
be
what
true.
George Burns told me to
What
say
did
to
he
that.
say? What did he
He
say?
said, well, if they don't, I've certainly been wasting a lot of peroxide.
And with that, we're going to thank you so much and wish you the best of luck.
Joan Quinn,
Thank you,
you're
Bud.
so interested.
Gee.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm
What
so
a
happy you were
company.
here. Is he making you peel off? Is he making you
yeah, I
thaw
make
off?
peel off, sure.
Oh, good.
You
Okay.
bet.
As long as you're well fed.
Oh, peel off. Oh, Oh, rice pilaf,
Yes.
my favorite,
Okay.
with chicken fat. If you put
Delicious.
Oh, stop it.
Yes.
Delicious, Harry. We're coming over for dinner.
With kucha.
Oh, see, she knows everything.
Armenian cucumbers. They're
Thank you so
much
much.
better than
Thank you,
just
thank
cucumbers.
you, thank you.
And don't go away. We'll be right back with Jeff Sumeral. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm with writer, producer, director Jeff Sumeral. He went to school at San Francisco Art Institute and the University of North Carolina in Asheville. He's toured as a stand-up comedian, acted in commercials, worked at an advertising agency, and has directed films. Let's run through this tour. Let's take a tour of your career. What did you do at the Art Institute? Were you going to be a fine artist?
No, I went there for filmmaking. And,
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it was very much an independent study, but I also was drawn to it because it had all the other art mediums as well, which I was interested in, sculpture and painting and graphic arts. That was sort of where I was leaning I was very visual as a filmmaker, even, or since that, even at that age.
Well, then, I didn't know they had a film department. So
Yeah.
you probably used all that art also when you went to work for the advertising agency.
Well, it was interesting. I think I was always sort of trying to strike this balance between art and commerce, or art and commercial. And
How do you make money?
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, well, I got to learn that part of it. So with the advertising agency, there was probably a lot more discipline than what I had at the Art Institute. So that was a good phase to go through, and also just to see the nuts and bolts of putting together a commercial production and doing something on a deadline, because sometimes I'm sure, as you know, with
People don't know,
artistic project, you go, well, this can go on and on and on. I don't have so I learned to have some self-imposed deadlines on my artistic projects.
Were you creative at the agency? Could you be creative, or was it pretty much dictated?
If you had the right mindset, you could convince yourself you were being creative. I think that's where, I'll tell the story. I was in my 20s, and I went to this art director, and God, now I'm thinking, God, he was so old. He was probably in his,
Oh, he was so old?
Yeah, at the time. I think he was probably, maybe late 30s. And I said, I'm thinking about going into performing stand-up comedy and this and this. And he said, leave, go, run, get out of here immediately. He said, you're going to get fat and happy like me and never do anything creative again. And I thought,
he did?
Yeah, I thought, wow.
That was great advice.
I know, it was.
Well, then
he said, you're young, you can do it.
That was fantastic, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And you did become a stand-up comedian. How
Yeah.
did you do that?
Well, it wasn't thought out. I started performing on weekends as I was in the ad agency, still having that creative drive and urge. I looked at it as two jobs, so I was really living pretty much for the weekends to perform, and I was writing and performing monologues in a sketch comedy group in, of all places, Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, and then a comedy club opened up in Atlanta, and that became a really big hub of stand-up comics, even from New York.
Did we come there?
Yeah, and it was in the very early days before the boom of stand-up comedy. So I started working out there some and started learning, you can actually get paid to perform stand-up comedy, and was meeting New York comics, and that's when I decided to make the transition.
Well, you did that, and let me say, when you stood up, how tall are you?
Oh, 6'2". Yeah.
6'2", yeah, you are a stand-up, stand-up comedian. One of the things you did, I think, in South Carolina, where were you? South Carolina, in the Carolinas, was this public happening thing.
Yeah, that was after my stand-up days. It was a good experience to learn about pacing, and also, really, I just always looked at it as storytelling. It's always story.
The happenings.
Well, the stand-up comedy, and then that led. I missed collaborating from the San Francisco art days, and so I went back and started doing more art happenings. We did an outdoor art gallery in a parking garage. So
See, that was cool, I thought. What did you do? That was a great idea. Drive-through?
A drive-through art gallery. We got the upper 3 levels of a parking garage. I noticed it wasn't being used, so I contacted the city. They said, sure, and we had cars driving through. We gave them an audio cassette. And they would have sound effects for all the different exhibits.
So that was very cool. That was a real happening.
Yeah.
And after the days of the happenings, and then you started making these one-of-a-kind, well, you call them one-of-a-kind films, but isn't a film always a one-of-a-kind?
Yeah, that's probably, I haven't come up, probably just, oh boy, what would you call it?
What were they?
Personal, I guess, you know, most of them in the early part were extensions of the stand-up comedy stories I told, the characters I would do. So I would be the character, and it was usually looking into camera and storytelling that
Very
way.
short films, which is so popular now.
Yeah.
Short films,
Yeah.
that's the big, instead of docs, they're short films.
Yeah.
I'm making a short instead of a doc.
Yeah.
But you did then go on to do, what was it, Kudzula?
Yeah, that
What
was
is that?
That was we have this plant that takes over the South called kudzu.
Oh,
and
kudzu.
it grows up vine. It goes up telephone poles and trees, and it started looking like monsters. So I had this notion of doing a parody of Godzilla called Kudzula.
I got it.
But it was about suburban sprawl. It had a little bit of a social, political message, and it was also live actors doing the voices and the sound effects to the film. So it was a stage and screen production.
Did you write it?
Yeah, we wrote it and we shot it in the summer, and we had a lot of kids in it. So it was very much a community. I was feeling it out to see did we have enough resources and talent to make a film in that area. So that was part of the exercise.
So was this kind of like the background for coming into your documentaries?
Well,
making these films?
It was the experience of working with a large crew and again, storytelling and getting a sense of pacing and what works and what doesn't work. But it was probably more of an extension from the public happenings and just something a little bit more and interactive.
Those were fantastic. So the really big film that you first made was called Bragging Rights.
Yeah, that was an unlikely...
Is that like the big thing?
Yeah, that was we have a football rivalry, and it had gone on for 100 years, and PBS affiliate there contacted me and asked if I wanted to do this, which was, like I said, unlikely because I wasn't a fan of either school. But I think
you didn't go to either school?
I think they just wanted a different slant on this, so I could be more objective. I didn't have an allegiance to either school or the rivalry, so I could ask questions that maybe somebody else may not ask.
So it was Clemson and University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And how did you attack it? It was 100 years of, I mean, you didn't have people who were 120 years old, so who had gone to school then.
Well, fortunately, the fellow I partnered with, Chris White, he was very familiar with the rivalry, being a fan since he was a kid. So we decided let's approach it as a real movie, not a documentary, but how would this be told as a movie? And then that led us into doing all these interviews and hearing these personal stories. It wasn't so much about who won and who didn't win, but the relationships.
Where they were then, or where they were, did you follow them?
Yeah, football players that played in the 40s and 50s and 60s and telling stories about each other and stories about their families attending the games. And a lot of them are very funny, and a lot of them are incredibly touching. You know, guys that were in World War II that left and came back and picked back up playing in this rivalry game and missing each other all during the war, and finally they're back together. You know.
So did that then go on PBS?
Yeah, that went on there, played there, and we had a pretty good distribution of it, and that really gave me the experience that led to the next film, To My Great Chagrin. That's
what I was going to ask you. When you did the Bragging Rights, did that go into festivals?
Not so much into festivals.
But To My Great Chagrin did go into festivals and won awards in all the festivals.
Yeah, the first significant step was the screening at the Museum of Modern Art.
That's fantastic! Like the opening night. How did you do that?
I was very grateful. I won't say I was shocked, but it was like, what?
So the Modern Museum premiere in New York
Yeah.
in 2008 played To My Great Chagrin.
Yeah, and then they added a screening at the end of their series.
Oh, they
too.
usually do the first night and then the
Yeah, it
next
was nice.
night?
They saw that I think it sold out that opening night, and they realized, wow, there's a fan base here for Theodore, especially in New York.
So tell us a little bit about it. Theodore, you just started. Tell us the story. Tell us his story and then how we got into the documentary part.
His story, yeah, it's very layered, and that would be the reason to see the film. But his personal history is so rich, as well as his stage performance. And he was born in Germany, grew up in Germany, the son of extremely wealthy family, multimillionaires in the 30s. And
his name?
Theodore Gottlieb was his name. And then they lost it all in the war, and he went to Dachau concentration camp. His parents were killed, and they were very close friends with Albert Einstein, who got Theodore out of Dachau, and he was shipped to the United States, but had no money, no contacts here, and ended up in San Francisco as a janitor at Stanford University. And then that led him, he said he had no other way of making a living. He decided to try to perform, and that led to a show in San Francisco, which then brought him to Los Angeles, and he was a tremendous hit here in Los Angeles in the
And
40s.
where was he performing?
In Los Angeles, it was the Cahuenga Playhouse, I believe it was, for maybe 4 months, and the reviews were saying, Theodore is to theater as Dali and Picasso are to painting, and it's just hard to imagine. I think it was just so unusual what he was doing.
So it was like a one-person show.
Right.
And what did he actually do?
I think his show, a lot of it was Edgar Allan Poe and Ambrose Bierce.
The darker side.
And then he started to massage that a bit and expand on it, and that led to his own stories and his own philosophy and his views on life.
Did he go on TV then? Was he on TV?
I don't think in the 40s, no, but then when he went to New York, that's when he started getting on television, and his big breakthrough was on the Merv Griffin show.
That's what I was wondering then. You did many interviews. I mean, and you interviewed people like Woody Allen and Eric Bogosian and Harlan Ellison. How did you get to these people?
It was, I interviewed Theodore for about 5 nights in early 2001, then he died about a month later, so I thought that would be the end of the documentary.
So you had footage with him, actual footage.
Yeah, but his close friends and family who were running his estate said, hey, here's an address book, here's some numbers. And I just assumed they would all be old and disconnected, but one interview would lead to another. And it was also a testament to Theodore that these people started coming forth and saying, yeah, we'd be glad to do it.
Well, when you called him, like when you called Woody Allen, did he just say, sure, I remember him?
His assistant said he remembers him. He doesn't know exactly what he would say, but he liked him. And I just said, well, that's not a no. How about I request later? So I waited a few months, and about 3 years later, I finally got the interview.
Oh, well, that's another good question.
Persistent.
How long did it take you to make the film then?
Well, it's a little misleading. We started in 2001, finished in 2006, but those first 4 or 5 years, it was only maybe 2-3 weeks out of the year, because one interview would lead to another. And I wasn't really quite sure, are we really making a documentary? Are we going to have enough? And where's this leading?
What were you doing in between these several years?
Well, I was working on another project, more of one of those one-of-a-kind films, a personal
short.
No, it's 40 minutes now.
Oh, it's long.
But I think it may be a staged screen piece. It's somewhat, I don't think it's autobiographical, but some other people say it is.
So you were working on that. Then
and I was doing other, some corporate work. A lot of work that I do, they want humor with something a little more visual style to it. So I do a lot of those kind of
When you were interviewing Theodore, did he know you were going to make a documentary, or was he not?
Well, several people had tried, and either he would sabotage it or just stop it. So he was 92, and everybody said, "Oh, you're the first that's able to do this."
I was going to say, did you have a rapport?
A little bit. I think he was just he was 92 and wanted someone to listen to him, and And someone said, you know, we're probably lucky he did die because it would have never happened if he
Oh,
did
that's
stayed
interesting.
alive.
So
But they were
now
so
it's
grateful.
out and
Yeah.
it's playing in
Yeah.
L.A. and it
Oh,
played in New York
Yeah,
and
the screening in LA was probably the most rewarding so far.
and
was
it's
the
San
fans.
Francisco.
We're hoping to go there and then also Santa Fe and maybe another screening in New York where that should be happening in the fall. Yeah.
Well, we're so happy you came and brought us the
Oh my
information.
gosh.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Email me at jaquinn1@aol.com, JAQUINN, the numeral 1. And keep writing because we're answering your letters as fast as we can. 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 90017. See you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.